The correct title for this episode is John Siracusa was wrong about something.
You too love just listening and jumping on something you think is wrong, both at once.
Well, it's not that we think it's wrong. It is wrong.
Oh, no, you think. Are you saying this is only children? Then it takes me 10 minutes to explain what I actually said. It's a thing.
No, you were wrong. Where's that window? I have so many windows open, I can't find it.
Actually, it's funny you say that. I have 6 different desktops running, which is more than I usually do, and they're not in the places I usually leave them, which is my own a problem of my own creation. I have 3. Spaces is the official Mac OS term. Virtual desktops. I have 3 of them. I like a maniac. I have probably 15 tabs open across all my browsers. This is ridiculous, I tell you. 15, man. John. I have 15 tabs across probably. I guess I can figure this out. How many browser windows? 3 browser windows, and I have maybe 15 tabs open. Maybe.
You might have more tabs open than I do.
It's unmanageable, I tell you.
Tell you what, I listening back to the Windows of Siracusa County last week during the edit.
So good.
I kept listening after the clip I pasted in, and man, it holds up. Casey and I sound like garbage because we have terrible microphones, and we recording at the bottom of a well, everything's all echoey and we sound terrible. John had his good microphone by then, so he sounds perfect, of course, because he sounds frustratingly good, but the most difficult to use microphone of all of us. And
naturally,
but if you get past the audio quality, oh my god, that holds up so well.
It's probably my favorite episode of ATP that has ever happened.
Yeah.
Oh god, so good. The best part was and I think it's kind of like Top Gear at its finest, which was it was completely genuine. Genuinely, we had no idea where this conversation was going, and the two of us, my recollection, Mark, I haven't listened to it outside of what you put in the show. The two of us, Marco and I, were just completely stupefied, dumbfounded, flabbergasted that this was that what was unfolding in front of us was real life. I could not believe, John, and still can't, that you feel like that was an acceptable way to manage your windows and browsers and tabs and whatnot.
Don't you realize that it's only a matter of time before both of you eventually adopt that the quantities so ludicrously discussed? We were like, I can't believe it. These numbers are so big. It's blowing my mind. It's only a matter of time before. You're getting close already. You were making jokes about 15 tabs. How many tabs do I have in open Chrome? Right now I have 2 Chrome windows open with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 12. 12 tabs. 2 windows, 6 tabs each.
Honestly, I'd be surprised if both the Mac and the web last long enough for us to get to that point.
Oh, here we go.
There's the Marco we know and love.
Welcome back.
One of those is going to... come on. What are the chances, really? Let's be realistic here.
But tabs will live forever. Hopefully not in multiple rows Windows style, because that was ridiculous.
I don't know. Will tabs live forever? Do you think there's a few... Honest question. So everyone around this part of the commentosphere seems to have some idea of what the future of computing is like. The future of computing so far does not seem to contain tabs much, if at all. What do you think about that?
Sure, it does. They're in Safari on the iPad, so they're safe for the future. But I really want to put a pin in the commentosphere thing, a big pin, a pin that fatally wounds that word and causes it to die and never escape from where it is pinned down.
Would you rather I start a vlog, John? Is that better?
A vlog?
I just feel like that you need to you don't need to go to commentosphere. You could pick something, anything else.
Blogosphere? That's just as bad.
No, blogosphere is better. It's not still bad, but it's better.
But honestly though, so you mentioned okay, there's obviously tabs in web browsers, even on iPads and stuff. Well, how much of computing these days is happening in web browsers, and how much of the web browser part of it is happening on mobile, which is where the future apparently is. The future, if I'm using the Amazon app, I can't do crap with tabs. I can't do anything. If I'm using some other app, if I'm working in an app, it's up to each individual app to support tabs. There was this relatively brief span in computer history where we did a whole bunch of stuff in PC-based web browsers. So there was this time that I think is pretty clearly fading, where we could have the amount of ridiculous tabs that John had, and we could have all this stuff open and different, everything was a URL, and we could have multiple windows to everything we did because everything was basically a web app. That time is clearly fading away, and we're moving towards, and very much already in, this other thing with custom apps for almost everything, most of them on phones. And in that era, in the current paradigm that we have here, I don't actually think that we're going to get to a point where the type of keeping all this stuff open, that type of multitasking is really not going to be possible in this world for the foreseeable future.
People love tabs. You can't stop tabs. They might not be on web browsers. They might be on the future mobile Facebook app that will have tabs, but people love tabs. Until something comes to replace tabs, tabs will be a thing. It doesn't mean that their tabs have to be what they are on PCs today, which is like the document model, but instead of multiple windows, you have a single window with multiple tabs and they're interchangeable. And that doesn't mean that they have to be that. I'm just talking about like tabs, like little things that when you hit them, switch it. I mean, you could just call it the segmented control in OS 10. That counts as tabs too, because they actually used to be tabs back on the... You guys never used Macs back when those were actual tabs, right?
No. I remember when they were tabs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, if you go to like system preferences now and go, what is it called, Marco? You don't know.
The segmented control?
One of your Mac programmers. Yeah, the segmented control used to be tabs. It used to be rendered as tabs, and they changed it to this big long capsule. Somewhere around 10.3, 10.4. I forget when they switched it.
Weird.
Go find it. They were big, shiny, glossy aqua tabs. They were like the aquaest tabs you have ever seen.
It would be really cool if there was some sort of resource that existed that we could go to see lots of screenshots and intense discussion about old versions of Mac OS, or excuse me, OS 10. Man, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
No, but honestly, like I really do wonder how the way that we like to work with tons of windows and tabs, and of course John takes it to a whole other level. Like, is there room in what we know today as the iOS and mobile paradigm, and what everyone says is the future of computing, and what Apple seems to be not only saying is the future, but also like allocating resources in order to basically force it to be our only choice for the future. Is there room in that for a lot of power users?
I don't know. I think that tabs are the easiest way to punt on like having multiple things open at once. You don't need to do a full-on windowing system. You just have a little tab control at the top of the bottom. And I mean, think about UI tab bar in iOS. I mean, those are still tabs, strictly speaking.
Well, no, that's different. Like tabs, the way we're talking about are not the way a segmented control or a tab bar would like separate out different functions of the same app. That's just how you arrange like one Windows interface. I'm talking about the way what browser tabs are, and then what Sierra introduced as like kind of for any document-based app, where like you can basically spawn as many tabs as you want, and each one is like an independent document or window for that application. And the problem is on iOS, apps are not designed to have multiple windows at all, so you can't even simulate this easily for all apps. Like basically all apps would have to be rewritten to support multiple windows on iOS, not to mention whatever kind of complexity the iOS UI itself would have to add for people to manage their windows, which I'm sure would not be good enough for John. So I wonder, like, is the idea of having all these things open a relic of the past that's going to die with the Mac, which might be sooner rather than later?
I don't think so.
To be clear, I was actually just talking about them as, again, not as like browser tabs or separate documents, but as just the plain old UI control. So the iOS ones would count as in a horizontal strip that has a bunch of things in it, and when you hit one of the things, a larger area above or below it changes to reflect the thing that you hit, and only one of them can be selected at a time. So that's totally what I was talking about. If you're talking about specifically the idea that it's user-controlled arbitrary, in which case like a tab bar wouldn't count, then that's a different thing. But I'm just saying people like the idea of a strip where you can hit a thing and it's always visible. It's like radio buttons, basically. You can only pick one of them. Only one can be active at once. And when you pick it, the whole rest of some large area changes to reflect the thing that you picked. Tabs. People love them. I pasted a bunch of ones in there. I think I got up to 10.2.
Wow, pinstripes.
To 10.3. Look at those tabs, though. Are those not the tabbiest tabs? That same control.
Yeah.
They changed the appearance in, I think, 10.5ish. I haven't gotten up to that, to look like segmented control. So it was like your same code all of a sudden would go from that to what you see today, more or less, with the segmenting controls.
Because it isn't just the bar of words at the top. Is it the whole frame there that makes it the whole card thing around it?
It's exactly the same as the segmented control. Like, so if you look at one of these things, and then just go to like system preferences today, if you just took this code and were able to run it today, it would look like it does with like the little recessed well. I think I had a graphic, because the cool thing was like they would change the original implementation. They would change the texture of the well, like the inset period, or inset area, to be darker. So if you nested a bunch of them, it would just get darker and darker and darker and darker. It was fun.
Yeah, Windows did that too.
Yeah. Well, the Windows did, like I said, Windows did the double row of tabs, which was just
no, but Windows had, I believe they called it frames, but it was the similar kind of thing where you'd have the inset area with a label or tab row at the top. But of course, Windows did it uglier, but more affordably.
That reminds me, and I'll use this to segue into follow-up. We had a handful of people write in and say that they are Microsoft employees that listen to the show. And, woof, I'm sorry.
Turns out there are some.
I'm not sorry that you're a Microsoft employee. I'm just sorry that, well, for basically anything we've ever said about any Microsoft product, except apparently the Surface.
Not true. We say nice things about Microsoft products all the time.
Yeah. And from what I understand, from what I hear from people who work there or have worked there, it actually sounds like it's a pretty good place to work.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've only ever heard good things about the Microsoft work environment and just like the kind of place it is to work.
What about you never had microserfs or learned about stack ranking and stuff like that? There's bad things about Microsoft, believe me.
But when they're being ranked, they'd be in a really nice office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. In any case, so I just wanted to thank those of you who have written in that are Microsoft employees. They all were quick to point out that they were not in the Surface Studio group, and they didn't know anyone from the Surface Studio group, which was unfortunate. However, it was still nice of them to write in, so thank you for that. Secondly, John's extraordinarily nerdy and fiddly wish for a battery burn down chart. Guess where it exists, kids? It exists in Android, because why wouldn't it?
So I didn't know what a burn down chart was, as you correctly predicted during the show, but I did, of course, find out afterwards from all the people telling us Android has it and showing us what they look like, and yeah, that actually looks pretty useful. I would love that, and I think now the door is open for people to make that for the Mac as a little battery widget for the menu bar. Honestly, it probably already exists. I probably just don't know about it, but that would be... I believe the market for that on the Mac is now very real, and I hope that either it already exists and it's good, or that somebody makes a good one. Yeah.
So there's that. Mario Run is now a thing. It's out. I personally have yet to try it. I've been extremely busy, but it's out. It's a thing. And if you're John Siracusa, it's Mario Run. So, John, how do you like Mario Run?
It's what I thought it would be. I mean, we've all seen the videos. It plays like it plays. It's fine. The online thing is annoying. The UI that they put in there is weird. The first run experience is cruddy, but as I said last week, like, they get the first one for free because there's just so much pent up demand for a Nintendo game on iOS, and it's a popular property. And so the first thing in the show notes was like, it's been downloaded 2.8 million times the first day, and then we have updated numbers 40 million times in the first 4 days. And Phil Schiller made a statement, Nintendo made a statement. Phil says this is the fastest downloaded game, not fastest selling, fastest downloaded game ever. And then these various companies try to estimate how many people are actually buying it based on the top charts and all this other stuff, guessing that maybe 4% of the people who downloaded it actually paid for it at its astronomical $10 price. And so that means it made like $16 million, which is, it's pretty darn good. I'm not going to sneeze that money. I don't know if it has already made back the amount of money it costs to develop it, considering they use a third-party engine for it, and had another developer, I think, help them actually do the dev work. So it's going well. Their second game that they release, I guess they'll probably still do okay on the second game because it'll be a different property or whatever. But there's a lot of people who are sending feedback sending me reviews that are saying this shows that Nintendo or whoever helped them develop this game really understands the mobile platform, because it's a great mobile game and it's good. It's fine. It's a good mobile game. But I still feel like it is taking an existing game, a 2D Mario game. You go run from left to right with Mario and you jump and stuff. Taking that and finding a way to make it work on mobile, which is different than starting from scratch and finding a good mobile game idea. And it's different in subtle ways. Like, I keep comparing it to Alto's Adventure. Like, isn't Alto's Adventure exactly the same thing? You just go from left to right and you press a button to do some stuff. I would argue that it is not quite the same thing, because Alto's Adventure is not an established franchise skiing platformer ported to single button press thing. It's conceived from the beginning to be a game for mobile. I find it more pleasing than a Mario game, partially because when I see him running from left to right, I have certain expectations of gameplay, and realizing that they had to subvert that and find a way, and to their credit they did, but find a way to make it interesting, novel, and fun while taking away freedoms that you expect when you see a static screenshot. I expect to be able to stop and run left, and I expect to run into a Goomba and die instead of automatically vaulting over him. Like, changing these expectations, like, you're getting a lot of praise, so isn't that clever? They chose just the right balance of things to make the game different and fun or whatever. It's like, but you are taking a different kind of game and dressing it up and cosplaying it as a Mario game, and I think it's a good game, and people should totally get it. It's well worth the $10 you pay for it, but it is, I'm not saying this to say it's not a good game and you shouldn't buy it, but I think Nintendo has not yet made a game conceived for the mobile platform. Like, I would be fine if it had their mascots and everything, but just like, don't, in the same way that Mario plays soccer, he plays baseball, he plays, I don't know, forget every sport he plays, he drives around in go-karts and stuff. In the same way that you can take that property and put it on a different genre, they have not yet taken that property and put it on a genre or a style of game made for mobile first. Instead, they've taken an existing game style, which is the 2D platformer, and modified it to work better in this environment. And I find, and I don't think that's a sustainable business for them. If it's just a way to get people into larger franchises, that's fine. But I'm still looking forward to the day where they come up with a game concept and idea that is for mobile first and truly plays to the strengths of that platform in the way that Pokemon Go did, basically. But, not that specific franchise, like for Mario or whatever. And then put whatever IP on it you want. Call it Metroid Pinball. I don't care. Whatever whatever graphics you have to put on it to make it palatable, make people buy it, fine. But they aren't quite there yet. So I continue to view this as them dipping their toes in, making some money, making some mistakes by making it online only, and doing silly things on first launch, like making people pick their country from a really long list instead of using location services and so on and so forth. But this is only a way to get people onto their other platforms. Which, by the way, even though these numbers look big, they still make more money selling one of their other games on their own platforms, because every single person who buys one of those games pays for it, whereas there's 40 million downloads, those aren't all paying $10 for things. So right now it still looks like a hedge, and if they're going to commit to it, we'll be able to tell when they start getting serious about their games development for these platforms. Right now it still seems like they're going for the Switch, and so we'll see how that turns out for them.
Marco, have you played this at all?
Of course I have. It's my job to stay current on the world of video games.
So that's a no?
No, I honestly have. I honestly have enjoyed this game. It is currently on my home screen. I don't know how long it'll stay there, but it is currently there, and I use it as a fun diversion. I think they did overall a really good job with it. There are areas of it that drive me nuts. The internet connection thing hasn't hit me yet because I don't have a real job anymore, but it will hit me next week when I'm traveling and when I'm in areas with poor reception. It will definitely hit me then. But overall, it's a really fun game. I really enjoy it. I like what I'm doing is, rather than just blowing through all the levels, I'm not moving on until I've gotten at least the first two coin colors, the pink and the purple, in each level. And so what I like about this game is that while I'm probably playing it wrong by whatever John would say I'm supposed to play it, this game allows you to play it kind of however you want. You can blow through everything. You can do, like, I haven't even done Toad's Racetrack or whatever that is. I haven't built anything. I haven't redeemed any of the various currencies I've been earning or whatever. All I've been doing is playing the levels to get the coins. That's it. And I've currently gotten through only World 1 doing it this way. I haven't even gotten to the second row yet because I'm not very good at video games, turns out. But it's fun. And I like this that this allows you to do that. I don't like how much overhead there is, like in waiting for menus and stuff and waiting for loading screens. I'm not crazy about that. There's like, to me, like an iOS game like this is something that you should be able to play while waiting online for something quickly. And they have, there's a lot of friction involved in like getting started with this game, and that's, I don't know if Nintendo is just incapable of not doing it that way, or if they just think that's the right thing to do. I don't know. Anyway, I just like it. It's fun. I am not analyzing it too deeply. I'm just having fun with it because I've always been more of a casual Nintendo fan. I'm not like a super diehard Nintendo fan or a diehard gamer for that matter. So I'm having fun with it. It's nice. I bought the unlock. I'm not going to give it a 1-star review, and that's it. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, that phenomenon was the other story about this. The fact that Nintendo released what I think anyone would have to say is a really good iOS game, like despite whatever, stumbles and the first launch. But it's a good game. It's a fun game. People enjoy playing it. And their reviews are being massacred by people who don't want to pay money. Mostly by people who say, this game is so fun. It's so mean of you to ask me for money for it. Why couldn't you give me this game I love this game. Isn't my loving this game enough for me to get it for free? Huge number of reviews saying, not worth $10. I love the people who are like, I would pay $7, but not $10. It's like, come on, people. Like, anyway.
Welcome to the App Store.
There's so many things wrong with the App Store, and, I always wonder who reads those reviews hoping to find out, in many ways, this game is review-proof, because if people are actually able to confirm that it is actually a Nintendo game and not a scam, which is a topic that we keep pushing down in the show notes, maybe we'll get to in a future show. If they're able to make that determination, no one's reading the reviews say, this is the one and only Mario game on the App Store. But let me read the reviews first. The reviews on the App Store. Maybe people read reviews on their favorite tech site if they really care, but people know whether they want a Mario game, especially since it's free to download. Just get it. The only people who are taking to the review section after, I want to play this game, but I can't spend $10. I have to think most of those people are younger people, children who literally don't have $10 to spend. Or
no.
I just can't imagine someone getting angry about $10 for Nintendo and taking to the reviews about it. Being angry or not deciding not to buy it, fine.
Oh, John, you have never had an app in the App Store.
No, I for Nintendo games specifically, I'm thinking because
no, it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters.
It doesn't matter at all.
Someone who's angry about their note taking app or whatever, I can understand them going to it because those are adults, but these have to be children.
John, when you tell me what it's like to have a real job, I'm telling you what it's like to have an app in the App Store.
You've never put a Nintendo game on the App Store. Obviously, if you're creating an app for adults,
it doesn't matter, John.
That's the thing. It doesn't matter. How many of those, okay, so first of all, they've had, what is it, 40 million downloads? So it doesn't take a high percentage of those to result in tons of reviews.
Right. So that's why I think most of those 1-star reviews complaining about the price are young people or children. Because it doesn't take a lot of them to do the top 50 reviews. There's 40 million people, 50 of them, the 50 cranky children. Who spends the time to write a review for a Nintendo game? Like, again, it's review proof. It's like a Star Wars movie.
I don't understand why you're hanging your hat. Why are you hanging your hat on Nintendo? Nobody gives a crap that it's Nintendo.
Bingo.
All they care about is that it's a game that they want to play, but they have to pay for it, and they're pissed off.
But adults understand that no one is going to look at reviews for a Nintendo game.
Oh no!
Oh, they really don't.
No.
Trust me, they don't.
If you are an adult who left an angry review about a $10 game, about this specific $10 game, please write into us and tell us why you think it was a good idea for you to spend your time writing a review for a Nintendo game, for the one and only, the first Nintendo game.
You don't understand.
You are getting clouded by your own love of Nintendo. You are so out of touch on this one.
And your own faith in adults, apparently.
It's not about love of Nintendo. It's about the idea. I can't imagine an adult wasting the time to write an angry review about the one and only Nintendo game in the App Store. It just doesn't.
God,
feel
John.
free to hate it. Feel free to not spend $10 on it.
There are a lot of angry, naive children of all ages.
I know, I agree with that, but I feel like those people are writing angry reviews about a $2 note-taking app. They're not writing angry reviews about a $10 Mario game.
They very much are.
Oh, you are so wrong, John. So let me
first of all,
put it to you
both of you don't
way.
know that because there's no ages attached to this thing, and neither one of you have written the one and only Nintendo game or the App Store. So I'm not arguing whether there are adults sending angry reviews about note-taking apps. Of course there are. You can tell that there are adults writing angry reviews about a $2 note-taking app. I know they're out there. But for the Nintendo game, I feel like it's got to be young people.
It doesn't matter, John. It doesn't matter if it's Nintendo or Vesper or your mom or 123 Note Taker. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it's $10 they don't want to spend. So let me give you an example. Just today, I was at Target and I realized that Captain America Civil War is out. And whether or not you, the collective you, liked that movie, I enjoyed it and I wanted to buy it on Blu-ray. It was $15. So it was $15 for me to legally purchase a movie. Think about the incredible hoops adults go through. Adults who make over $100,000 a year go through in order to rip off a $15 Blu-ray. Think of all the trucks that they look in to see if the back has come off of them to save $15 on a movie. And you think that they're going to say, "Oh, well, this is Nintendo. They're okay. They get a buy." Hell no.
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Those people are not writing angry reviews. They're not going to Best Buy and going to the bottom of the Best Buy store section where you buy Civil War and saying, "This movie isn't worth $15. I would maybe pay $10 for it, but $15 is too much, 1 star."
Have you seen Amazon reviews? Oh, come on, John.
There's a lot of people out there who will complain about anything.
No, they're not. They're just because they're just going to go get the movie another way, and it's not because they're laying off because it's Nintendo. It's because they realize that nothing they can say in the comment section of a Nintendo game has any relevance to anybody. No one is reading the comment section to decide whether they want a Mario game or not.
This is the flaw in your logic, John. These people who leave 1-star reviews think they have power. They think this will hurt their sales. They think that people will be forced to read this, that people will respond to it somehow. They think they're voting with their 1-star. They really do think they are powerful and they are going to register their complaint and it's going to make a difference and someone's going to have to face them.
Yeah, but that's true on note-taking apps because people do read reviews on note-taking apps because they have to find which one of the 8,000 note-taking apps is any good. So they actually do have power in the note-taking apps because by millions of people leaving cruddy reviews, people will try to find ones that have high star ratings.
You are so confusing logic with emotion. No, this is so wrong.
There is no logic in App Store reviewers.
I understand about venting. I understand all those things. Look, we don't have demographics, so nobody actually knows the ages of these people leaving reviews. You can try to surmise the ages by the grammar and punctuation, but that is
I'm not so sure you can.
No, that doesn't work either.
But it gives you something to hang your hat on. Like, that's all we've got to go on.
Let the record show on the 21st of December in the year 2016, John Siracusa was finally wrong about something.
No, you have no idea who is right or wrong because we don't have the demographics. You're just assuming.
No, we know. You're wrong.
I would love to see the demo on this. It's
There's
kind
40
of like,
million people. It's all the demographics, John. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there is 40 million people, but do you think the 40 million people are evenly distributed in the people who write reviews? Like, demographically speaking, there's an even distribution?
No,
I don't think they're all. I don't think it's a bell curve hovering around 10-year-olds, though.
All right, here. Let's put it this way. So let's say distribution-wise for gender. What do you think the distribution is of gender of people who write angry reviews as compared to the purchasers? So let's say the purchasers are 50-50. What do you think the distribution is of angry commenters?
Probably a little bit more male, but probably not as much as you think.
A little bit more? I'm going to go 98 to 2%
I would agree
male.
with John on that one. I would agree with John on
2% male. This is an example of how the demographics of commenters can be wildly out of line with the demographics of downloaders or purchasers.
Oh, sure. However, there is absolutely no way that the people commenting on this are only children because the adults know that it doesn't matter.
I didn't say only. I said mostly. I didn't say only.
I still disagree. How many children do you know that have iPhones? I know it's a lot, but still, come on.
I included young adults. Like I said, young people.
Oh, that changes everything.
These are people of all ages who want to get their satisfaction and want to be heard and want to send a message to those greedy, money-grabbing people at Nintendo. Trust me, this is the App Store. I haven't read my App Store reviews for Overcast in probably 2 years, and I have been so much more mentally healthy as a result of that. Because for years I would worry, what would the reviewers say? With every change I made, with everything I did or didn't do, I was constantly worried with my apps, like, what will I get more 1 stars for this? And you know what? It doesn't matter at all the vast majority of the time. If you have if you basically have anybody looking for your app for any other reason, if they heard about it somewhere, if they know it by name, whatever else, if you have any number of people seeking out your app, the reviews don't matter. And if you don't have any number of people seeking out your app, you're going to fail anyway. So really, it kind of doesn't matter. And I can urge all developers out there, please, if you read your iTunes reviews, your App Store reviews, same thing for podcasters. I don't read those either. Take 6 months and don't read them and see what happens. See, are you happier? Is anything different? Are your sales any different? Probably not.
Yeah, it's so true. So, there's a feedback form within the app that I work on at work, and it emails a mailing list that's internal to the office and all of the developers, iOS and Android, get all of the feedback from both iOS and Android. And you would not believe the amount of 4-letter words and demands that we get. Just the other day, I was stunned. Somebody wrote in, such and such thing doesn't work. I expect this to be fixed immediately. Like, this is just some random schmo writing into the ether. They have no idea who this is going to. I expect this to be fixed immediately. Like, what? And it was clearly an adult. Like, this was not a child. This was an adult.
You don't have to convince me that adults send angry emails and random feedback about applications.
But not to Nintendo.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to. Look, all I'm saying is this specific game, I would say the reviews skew way more male than the purchasers and skew way younger than the purchasers. Not just by like a percentage or two, but hugely, way more male and way younger. And I would say that if you took the top 10 or 20 angriest 1-star reviews complaining solely about price, those are going to be dudes, and they're going to be between the ages of young enough to be able to write into a review and like 25.
I'm not so convinced. I mean, you might be right. I don't know, but I doubt it.
And it's not they're all children. It's not that adults don't write in angry things to other applications. It's not that reviews kill other applications. All those things are not things that I said. I said that I have to think that these are mostly children, which nailed down into more concrete terms, that these reviewers skew more younger and more male. And the more male, I think you can both get on board with, because honestly, like, men are terrible. Like, just,
It's true.
That's a gimme, right? And not because men refuse to buy things more than women or anything. It's just that they're going to tell you about it, right? And then young people, like old people, don't have time for that crap, right? So it's just a question of how it skews compared to the demographics, right?
The male part I agree with. The youth I agree with. I believe these are both, like, it does skew that direction. It's not all men. It's not all young people.
Right. But compared to the purchasers, because I have to think the purchasers, it's probably pretty even gender split for Mario. Like, it's a popular.
I will say it is all ages, and it doesn't matter whether they've heard of Nintendo or not.
Everyone's heard of Nintendo.
You'd be surprised.
Heard of Nintendo, but no. But I think your affection for Nintendo is deeply clouding your perspective here. But
it has nothing to do with affection. It has to do with an understanding that the older you get, the more you realize what Marco just said. That no one reads those reviews to find out whether they're going to download a game, and all you have left is venting about it.
People
and
don't learn that. They
old
really
people
don't.
eventually give up on venting because they realize.
Oh no, they do not. Are you kidding me?
Have you ever been around an old person?
All they do is vent.
Well, they're writing to their congressman and sending angry letters to the diner because their soup was cold. That's a different. They find different outlets.
Oh no, sir.
There's a personality type that they need to get their satisfaction, and they need to make their voice heard about every minor complaint in their life. I mean, I can't really talk that much about this, but this personality type, this does not change over time. They don't like grow out of that. That stays with people forever, their entire lives, all ages. That stays with people.
Well, maybe we have to wait until the generation that grew up with the App Store gets to that age, but they're not that age yet.
All right, we're going in circles on this, so let's move on. But let
anyway,
the record
Apple,
show.
All you need to do, Apple, is put demographic information attached to all of the comments, so we can just scroll down there and say, "Oh, male 18, male 22, male 25." Oh, what a surprise!
Oh my god!
Oh god! Oh my god!
Although, by the way, if you go to like here, so let's try to think of the application that has the audience that skews the oldest. So what the oldest part? I guess it's probably like health related, like blood pressure things, or like health monitoring something.
Broadcast TV apps, like an NBC app or something.
Maybe. I bet that's probably broader than you think, but no, maybe the CBS app. That's used pretty old, right? And I have trouble because those people who are that age didn't grow up with the App Store. I have trouble thinking how many of them realize that leaving a review is a thing you can do. Even
they know.
Oh, I agree. They know.
I think in small numbers, but anyway.
Oh, John, your innocence is beautiful.
I would love to read the angry reviews of the application whose customers skew the oldest. Maybe the AARP app or something.
Facebook?
Because I think they would look, and comparing them, like sentence structure wise, like the things they're angry about, how they express themselves, to the Angry Mary reviews. I think you could feed the text through one of those, like, guess the age and educational level and the year they were born based on the words and sentence structure they use. I think the incredibly angry AARP app reviews would look materially different than the incredibly angry Mario Run reviews.
Wow. So we actually have a new sponsor this week. It is called Wesell Socks. So it's at wesellsocks.com. And the guy who runs this, it's a one-person operation. He's a fan of the show, and he said, I was wondering if I could request that Marco, John, and Casey critique the site and the service, negative and positive, on first glance, instead of doing a regular ad read.
That is a bold maneuver. My goodness.
It's a terrible idea.
John's critique originally.
Has he never listened to the show? It's a good thing I'm not riled up today.
Oh, God.
So I think we should probably save John for last. Casey, do you want to go first, or should I?
Opening hero image, good. Not a movie, good. $14 a month. It's a little aggressive depending on how many socks you get and how fancy they are. Scrolling down, pretty good calls to action, pretty simple pull quote, good FAQs. No, the site looks good. And I'm not clear on how many pairs of socks you get for $14 a month, but the socks look nice. They're colorful. I don't know. Seems good to me.
I also was not sure. So $14 a month. It says $14 a month delivered worldwide. And I got clarification, and it's actually $14 Canadian, which is about $10 US. But there's a $5 shipping charge on top of that, I believe. And so that ends up being $14.15 US, including the shipping. So it ends up working out about the same. So anyway, worldwide shipping, that's good. And they also do a cool thing where for every pair that he sells, and I'm pretty sure, I also didn't know how many pairs you get. I'm pretty sure it's one pair for that. It's because it's like, these are like fancy socks. It's not like it isn't like a pack of Hanes. It's like these like fancy like designer socks like that, like people who are cooler than us would usually wear.
Right.
Although honestly, I have been thinking about whether I want to get into the world of fun socks. Because right now I wear very boring things.
What? You're a man that wears the same black T-shirt every single day.
Jeans and a black T-shirt, but every day socks are different.
Exactly.
Oh my God, you two are out of control. I need to start drinking. Holy crap!
Yeah. So anyway, and he also does this cool thing where for every pair he sells, he donates a pair to a local shelter for people in need.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And it's not like he doesn't donate like a crappy pair. He donates a good pair along with the pair that you buy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's a cool mission. I think the site could communicate this better because like the thing about like how that's $14 a month Canadian and that it's one pair of socks, I think there needs to be clarification on that. But otherwise, I think it's pretty cool. You know, I know there are other sock subscription services out there, but I would try this one first, honestly. I will reveal a secret to you guys. I have always had a dream of getting a sock subscription service where I could wear a pair of brand new socks every day.
Of course. Because
the feeling of new socks is so awesome, you know? And the reason why I've never done this is because it just obviously sounds incredibly wasteful. And because what do you do with socks that were worn once, like for one day? You can't just throw that away. That's terrible. And nobody really wants used socks. So I haven't ever done this or started this business or patronized any such businesses because that would just seem ridiculous. But I feel like one pair of cool new socks a month might be a nice compromise.
You are the clothing equivalent of the billionaire who smokes each cigarette once and then puts it away.
Goodness.
I don't know anything about cigarettes, but sure, yeah. Right. I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I did look at it ahead of time. I had the same question. I think it needs to be clearer of how many things you get. I would throw in some more reassuring text about like if you want to bail, you just cancel. Like I'm sure stuff like that because you want to overcome you want to tell people what the deal is quickly and overcome people's anxiety about getting roped into something. As for the concept, Marco aside, which still seems like a little bit of a stretch to me, this is a thing that I have seen, like the idea that interesting socks is part of your look, and I can imagine if that was part of something you do, just have fun with your clothing. But it's not that easy to find interesting socks, and also you never quite know, like, if you're presented with, if you just go on Etsy and see like billions and billions of weird socks, which one should I get now or whatever. The aspect of having someone do the picking for you and just like you know, having it be a surprise each day, like you take, you know, whatever you arrives, that's what you're going to take. That is both freeing and a little bit interesting and exciting. So I can imagine people, not Marco, doing this and getting a kick out of it. The website, my only real complaint, other than the whatever those non-loading images are, is I hate when they do the little cutaway with the you know, the position fixed background as you scroll things above it, so that the picture of the socks in the back when you scroll. I don't like that. I don't like things that break the physical metaphor of the scrolling page. I know
of course
the kids like that, but it's not for me. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of space taken up by stuff that is not the most important three paragraphs. I mean, they have the 3 paragraphs on the thing, but I feel like information density could be better.
Yeah, I can see that.
But other than that, yeah. It's not for me. It's probably not for Marco, but I have seen people in real life who are into fancy socks, and I subscribe to the idea of putting that into someone else's hands.
So anyway, I think it's a cool service. I think, John, I agree with you that if I were to be a fancy sock person, I would want someone else who is more fashionable and into sock choices than me to be choosing them for me. And that's what this would offer. And I think I might do something crazy like this because, you know, for basically like half of the days of my life when I put on my outfit, which is the same thing every day, about half the time I put on the socks and I think, wouldn't it be great if all of my socks were exactly the same and I wouldn't have to match up the subtle difference between these like minor black pattern variations.
Yeah, it solves the problem in a different way, right?
Right. And then the other half of the mornings, I think, you know, maybe I could try some fun socks sometime because everything else I wear is boring and I like it that way. I like to keep it that way, but I'm always wearing a nice watch and I wouldn't mind always wearing cool socks. So I have thought about this before and I might do it.
I also like the idea that inevitably you'll get some socks that you think are hideous, in the same way with like Jelly Bellies when there's like a bad flavor. I think that is part of the fun, that you know, the whole idea of letting someone just send you a bunch of socks is that you're going to have some ones that are like exciting and cool and fun that maybe you wouldn't have picked up for yourself, and you're going to have some that are hideous, and that is part of the fun.
That's true, yeah. Or I just send those to you.
Well, you know, you should still wear them. Like, you do a thing of like, even when they come and they're hideous, in the same way that you end up eating like the Jelly Belly flavor you don't like, or like you put them all aside, but then when you're done, you still want more jelly beans, so you just eat all the black ones anyway. Black ones are the worst.
Anyway, thanks to Wesell Socks for sponsoring our show, and check it out. Thanks, Wesell Socks.
Did you guys get your AirPods?
I did. John did too,
John.
right?
I got my little clicky case right here.
Oh, fancy.
Nice.
And what do you think?
Which one? You have to address one of us.
Hosting
So
101.
this is the one time that the two of you don't jump in and you wait for me to give you
This is the first time that's ever happened.
I know, I'm stupefied.
Well, no, because I would have gone forward, but I want to go back to this. The item I had for the AirPods before we had received ours, so this was last week, is about why they were delayed. You know, they were expected, I forget when it was, they said they were going to come out in October or something, and it's like, where are the AirPods? And it was like, oh, there's some sort of delay, and Apple had to scrap its entire first production run of the things and remake a whole bunch, and now they're in short supply. And there's a bunch of stories about that and whatever. They're shipping now, and it was difficult to get them before Christmas, and even in the new year it'll be difficult, and Apple stores are getting tiny shipments. But what I'm interested in is the idea of the delay, because a lot of people were upset about it just because people want what they want, but also, oh, Apple's supposed to be good at making things. Why did they do this? And I think this is a situation where anyone who is who thinks this delay is indicative of something bad about Apple or a problem has things backwards. It's disappointing. Like, obviously Apple would have liked to have gotten them out sooner and someone made a mistake somewhere or whatever. But the fact that there's a delay is exactly what we want Apple to be doing, especially in light of like Samsung Galaxy Note, batteries exploding or whatever it is, the Note 7 batteries exploding. Like, the most important thing Apple can do is make sure that whatever it is they ship meets their standards for whatever, aesthetics, reliability, safety, so on and so forth. Whatever this problem was that caused them to have to delay the thing, that's exactly what we want them to do. Like, obviously, ideally, that you don't mess up, right? But if you do mess up, you have to do the right thing. And I just can't, think about people being angry at Apple for delaying. It's like, this is exactly what if anything ever goes wrong, they say, well, why did you ship it if it wasn't ready? Don't ship it if it's not. We say that about software all the time. It's like quadruply true about hardware. So I don't know what the problem was. I don't really care what the problem was. I would much rather have a product that is ready to be released than one that is rushed out and has some sort of problem. Because who wants to get AirPods and find out there's some little flaw in some, if even 2% of the people have to end up going back to the Apple Store, that's terrible. No one wants to go back to the Apple Store. I'll wait an extra 2 months. Ship it when it's done. So I'm not going to say I applaud the delay, because no one likes a delay. And again, ideally, whatever the problem was, Apple would have caught earlier and fixed it. And this is not exactly a good thing, but this is exactly what I want a company to do when they do make a mistake, which happens. Companies made of people. People make mistakes. When they do make a mistake, do the right thing about it. And it seems like that's what they did here.
Cool.
I'm a little bummed that there was a delay, just because these seem like they're super cool. But I completely agree with you that if you're going to roll the dice, I'd err on the side of caution. And gosh only knows what the delay was. I think it was iFixit said that there were some dubious tolerances or something like that in the case, which they somehow extrapolated to mean that maybe there was some build quality issues. I don't know about that one way or the other.
Yeah, that didn't read right to me. That read a lot more like completely baseless speculation than anything real.
I agree. Yep, that's how I read it too, which is why I was kind of confused by it. But anyway, but I don't know that we'll ever know why there was a delay. But it's certainly, like you said, John, I'll take the delay, and they did eke it in by the end of the year, and I'll take the delay over some sort of flawed product.
Yeah, if anything, I'm hoping at this point that they didn't do anything silly to rush it out just to get something ready for the holiday season. If anything, I'm hoping that like it really was ready to ship, and there wasn't some immense pressure, because obviously there's immense pressure to ship, in time for the holidays, right? And that can that's exactly what causes a company to say, well, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't do it, but because we have to make the holiday season, everybody's under a huge amount of pressure to just make it happen, even if they're not quite up to where they want them to be. And I haven't heard any stories yet, and I guess we'll find out in a couple months if all our AirPods die or whatever. But I'm hoping that they waited long enough, because honestly, like, that's the right move for the company. It's like your reputation as Apple, as a company, just ask Samsung again. Your reputation for reliability and doing the right thing and only shipping products that are of the standard people expect, especially for hardware where you can't ship a patch, right? You can't fix it in a point release. That is so much more important than even hitting a holiday season, especially for a company with as much money in the bank as Apple. If you have to miss the holiday season, miss the holiday season. You'll get dinged for it, and you'll say, hey, you tried to hit the holiday season with your product, and you didn't, and that's bad, and you have made a mistake, but it's still a lesser mistake than shipping people EarPods that blow up in their ears or whatever.
Indeed. Yeah, and for whatever it's worth, ATP Tipster in the chat is saying that the issue was not blowing up in your ears. It was a manufacturing problem initially related to the Bluetooth hardware, that it was not performing well, and it was using excessive battery during operation. So that could be true.
Any of those things, like, oh, I got my AirPods and they don't connect, or the battery runs out too quickly, and again, Apple can't patch it if it's a hardware problem. So
yeah, and it does seem like the basic operation of them. I mean, most people have had them for 1 or 2 days so far, but it does seem like they work well. And with a few exceptions, a few people have had interference problems or connection problems with them, but with those few exceptions that I've seen, almost everyone who has them seems very happy with them.
So are you guys starting with Marco?
There you go.
One more item. One more item. Look at the notes.
God, that was the perfect segue. We are not beholden to the damn notes, John. But okay, John, tell me.
You are. You are.
You are the worst.
You're beholden to the passage of time. The earlier things, and then they're followed by later things.
Oh, and God, John.
The earlier item is... well, first of all, we'll turn this... Marco, have you lost any of your AirPods yet?
I don't know. Tiff has them right now, but when I gave them to her an
I'm
hour
say
ago...
no. Last time you saw them, they were both there, right?
Yes.
All right. I haven't lost mine either. But if I did, was asked on the last show, what would we do about it? You can apparently replace one for $70.
I did have one fall out of my ear during the first 2 hours of using it.
All right. Well, now we can shift into Marco telling us what he thinks of them. I just wanted to get because that was a question last show. What happens if you lose one? Answer: $70.
Yeah. So, and that's honestly not bad. For what they cost, that's fine. It's good that they will sell you individual ones at all. Because they could have just very well said, well, you just got to buy a new pair. Oh well, and so to have an option at all to buy individual ones to replace lost or broken ones is nice. Yeah. So my impressions overall, as you know, I'm reviewing all the headphones in the universe. And basically, my concerns before this were I've never had an Apple EarPod or any earbud or any ear canal phone that fit me comfortably and well, that both was comfortable and would stay in. I've never found one. My ears are just weird, I guess. And I was concerned the AirPods would fit me just as well as the EarPods do, which is with mediocrity, with some discomfort, and they fall out. And I was also concerned about the lack of controls on the AirPods, excuse me. Boy, that's a common mistake this week. Anyway,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, so like I the lack of like volume and play pause and seek back, seek forward, which are very commonly used in podcasts. Like I had one person on Twitter, I'm sorry, I forgot the name. There's one person on Twitter said, I've heard more ads on Overcast this week than I ever have before with the AirPods. But anyway, thanks to our sponsors. So they only have either Siri or play pause with the double tap gesture. We've gone over this before. So anyway, when they arrived, those were my concerns, and they are exactly what I thought they would be, in good and bad ways. So in all the good ways, the pairing process is awesome. The case, the battery charging, all that stuff is awesome. The case is a little bit thick for pocket use. It fits okay in that little like change pocket on top of your jeans right pocket. It fits okay in there.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
But otherwise, they're great. They actually, I'm not a huge fan of earbuds for sound purposes, but these sound pretty good if you like hold them in, especially. Like basically the amount of bass that earbuds have depends entirely on how well they seal snugly inside of your ear. If they seal well, if they can really rest in there and really like lodge themselves in there, you will get great bass and they will stay in. And if you are not me, they might even be comfortable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm sorry for jumping in, but I have a pair of Ultimate Ears. I don't know how they're classified, but they're basically earphones. And I could not agree with you more that when I have them seated just right, they are probably the best sounding speakers that I own. And I have a couple of pretty decent pairs of headphones, not Marco crazy good, but decent pairs of headphones. And I actually think the stereo in my car is really darn good as well. But these Ultimate Ears are phenomenal as long as they're seated properly. And the moment they get even the teensy weensiest bit unseated, it's a totally different scenario.
Yeah, so the AirPods are exactly the same. When they are very well seated, so that you get good bass out of them, the sound quality is very good. Because when they're that seated, the harshness of like and tinniness of the mid range and the highs that you often get if they're out a little more, that gets softened and rolled off and muted a little bit. So it's actually a very well balanced sound. And for $160, a properly sealed AirPod is a really good deal in the headphone world. It's not the best, but it's really good, especially for something that small. So when they are well sealed, they sound good. When they are not well sealed, like how they sit in my ears, they sit a little loose, like I can't get them to seal because whatever, my ears suck. The bass suffers tremendously, but the rest of the sound actually isn't too bad. The mid-range gets a little bit accentuated, and so it sounds a little bit more harsh. But overall, I'm very pleasantly surprised by how good they sound. And I really wish they fit me better because I would use them a lot more. Unfortunately, they don't. They fall out of my ears. Even if I'm just like I wore them yesterday while I was wrapping gifts. I'm like walking around the table, bending over here and there, and they fell out. One of them fell out after a few minutes. Fortunately, I kind of felt it happening, so I caught it. The other day, or yesterday, whenever it was, I took my dog for a walk also, and had to bend over to pick up something that you have to do when you take your dog for a walk. And
oh, God.
The worst almost happened.
Oh, God.
It didn't. It missed by like a few inches.
So you almost spent $70 at the Apple store that day.
You wouldn't buy a new one. You can clean that off. Come on. It's all natural.
Yeah, you can clean that off. I would buy a new one. But yeah, so...
You have a kid. You know what it's like. Everything in your house is covered with poop. Don't pretend it isn't.
And I put it in my ear. So
You are. You don't know it, but you are.
So yeah,
man's conjecture.
They don't, and yeah, and that actually happened to Jason Snell as well. He mentioned an upgrade this week. So yeah, they don't fit me well, and it's unfortunate because it is really nice to have something that small. The double tap to play pause I have found to be fairly unreliable. You have to tap it pretty firmly to get it to work reliably, and that's not good because it's kind of uncomfortable.
Why would you do that rather than just pulling one of the earbuds out?
So you could do that too. So basically, I'm just saying, like, for reference, the gesture of either invoking Siri or doing play pause, depending on your preference, it is a little inconsistent and a little tricky to do reliably. So that's unfortunate. But other than that, they're fine. The sound is better than I expected. They are, small and light, and they almost fit in my pocket comfortably with the charging case. And without it, of course, you could do whatever you want with them. They do unfortunately fall out of my ears, and so I'm not going to return them. Like, they're nice to have around, but I think they'll be more like something I keep in my backpack for, like, in case I forgot big headphones and I'm like on a trip, or if I'm going to the city, maybe I'd bring them. At least something like that, like where like I'm not going to be like bending over much. If I'm going to be like sitting on a train or a bus for a while, like that would be better for that. But I don't know. So I'm going to keep them. I'm glad I have them, but I'm probably not going to use them heavily because they just are physically incompatible with me in a pretty big way, unfortunately.
Also, I've found if you have a winter hat over them, it could help hold them in because the winter hat will cover your ears, and then like not too tight, but like it'll basically they won't fall. Basically, it's impossible for them to fall out with my big, heavy winter hat down over my ears.
Yeah, I'll try that next actually because. Walking with like bigger headphones is not great in the winter, but yeah, so I'll try that.
So, John, what do you think about yours?
I agree with most of the things Marco said, but the earpods do stay in my ears, like the plain old earpods do, and so do the AirPods, because I keep reading reviews of like whether they're shaped differently. Even Jason Snell said he thought they were shaped differently, and I looked at my, the ones that came with my iPhone 7 and these, and as far as my eyeballs can tell without a micrometer, they are identically shaped. But anyway, they stay in my ears just fine, just like all the other ones have, and I've been using them for a long time now. So that's not a problem for me. I was interested to see how they would change the way, I listen to stuff, because I do listen during my commute, and the commute is Bluetooth in the car, obviously, but walking to my car, which is not a long walk, but even just, walking around the house in the morning, and then I go out to my car, and then I get into my car, and then it comes over Bluetooth, then I take out my headphones, then I drive to work. Then when I get out of my car from the umpteenth floor of the parking garage, I put my headphones back in, and I walk all through the parking garage and the building, so I'm using my headphones for the walking part of my commute. And I also wear them a lot when I am doing dishes or when I am cooking dinner at night and stuff like that. Or just folding laundry or whatever, just doing mindless work by myself. And not using like Bluetooth speakers, sometimes because I don't want to disturb other people in my house. Other times it's just, you just want to have your own thing. So I thought these would be ideal because I wanted something like this for a long time. I was talking about it this many, like 6 months ago or a year ago, and about wireless earbuds. And they mostly work the way I thought they would. Glad that they pair with the phone, sound comes out of them, no real problems. Taking the thing out of your ear to pause and putting it back in actually works. for the most part exactly as advertised. The construction of them looks good. They sound more or less the same as, I'm not picky about the earbuds. I'm just listening to podcasts or whatever as the other earpods. Here are the things that surprised me, though. I knew this was a thing that I did, but this really hammered home how much I do it. Apparently, I adjust the volume a lot on my wired earbuds. In all sorts of circumstances. Why would I be adjusting the volume a lot when I'm making dinner alone in the kitchen by myself? Well, because sometimes the little overhead fan is on, and sometimes you're running the garbage disposal, and sometimes there's a pan sizzling, and apparently I'm just like I'm a climate micro adjuster, climate micromanager in the car. I am a volume micromanager with listening to podcasts.
I'm shocked.
A huge, and
me as well.
I tried going with, can I squeeze the little volume buttons with the thing in my pocket, like in my jeans pocket or my jacket pocket as I'm walking? Because walking like in the parking garage is noisy as a car goes past you, but then when you get on the street, it's not as noisy, but then the UPS truck is driving past and you can't hear your podcast again, so you need to pause it or make it louder again. And taking them out of your ear is not an option when you have a big, thick glove on. Anyway, volume adjustment it's a no-go. But I think I would probably tolerate that. I think I would probably just put it at a louder volume and just tolerate it and just or try to learn to it if it wasn't for the second thing, which is I pause the podcast a surprising amount of time, specifically when I am in the kitchen cooking. Because my wife will come in and ask me something and go back out, or I'll want to ask her something, or one of my kids will come in and say something. I pause and play and pause and play a huge amount. Taking out is not really an option because then I have to have some place to hold it, and maybe my fingers are gross enough, like too gross to be grabbing the earbud, but just gross enough for me to use just my pinky and my thumb to press the little button. I don't know, but taking it out just didn't feel, and I was afraid I was going to drop it down the disposal or not keep track of where it is, or then then I'm occupying one hand because if I have to pause it to help do something else. And often actually I will pause when I need to concentrate on the important part of the Blue Apron recipe that I'm doing, because I have to read the instructions and I want to pay attention to the instructions and not be gloss over it or whatever. So sometimes I'll pause when I'm alone in there just because I need to concentrate slightly more and I'm an active listener who wants to listen to what they're doing.
You don't have to pay that much attention. Season with salt and pepper. Wash and dry the fresh produce. Come on.
It's easy to miss the fact that they said only fry up a quarter of the noodles, not all of them, because the fry ones are just to put on top, and then you're supposed to boil the, so yeah.
You fried all the noodles in the chicken cassoulet soup?
I didn't, but someone we both know did. Because I followed instructions and paused during that part. But I'm just saying it is possible to not.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, so I'm pausing and resuming a lot. Now, what about the double tap? Here's the other thing that surprised me. I was like, all right, fine, whatever. I have to pause or whatever. I'll just do the double tap. The double tap, reliability-wise, I found, like Marco, that it's not 100% reliable. But I think I can live with that. It's not as 100% reliable as pinching the little thingy, but whatever, it'll get by. But I find it to be incredibly physically unpleasant.
Yes.
To tap that thing that's in my ear. Incredibly unpleasant. Shockingly. It didn't even occur to me to think about how unpleasant this would be. You know how unpleasant it is to get earbuds yanked out of your ear by the wires, which will never happen again with AirBuds? It's like that, but you're doing it to yourself. You have to hit it surprisingly hard, and if you have to do it 4 times instead of 2, I'm like, no, if someone was doing this to me, I would punch them. But I'm doing it to myself. I'm doing it to myself. I'm tapping a thing that's lodged into my ear. It is terrible feeling. And I just can't have it. So in the kitchen now, I'm back to using my wired earbuds because pressing the little play pause button is way more pleasant and way faster. And just, and I also have volume control. So the AirPods are banished from the kitchen. For other environments, if I'm going out for a walk or just, anything that is out and about in the world, including mostly commuting, walking through the parking garage and down and across the campus and up the, AirPods, I think, are mostly still good for that, and I will still use them for that. But for basically for non-exercise or non-mobile things for in the house, the wired earpods have beaten them out. For me personally, I'm not saying this is going to be for you because everyone is different. I'm going to say as a review of the product, I think the product works as advertised and does exactly what everyone says it does, and you can read the reviews to see the feature set and so on and so forth. You'll know there's no volume control, right? But for me personally, the wired ones win for the house.
So I got to tell you, in my personal opinion, I love these things. As it turns out a listener of the show who lives in Richmond, Matt Wallen, wrote me 2 nights ago. Is that right? 2 nights ago, and said, hey, I bought 2 pairs, one for my wife, one for me, and my wife said, yeah, I'll pass, thanks. Do you want them? And I said, well, yes, I do. And so I met Matt at a local Starbucks. Sorry, Marco. And he was a very nice guy, and it happens. He was a very nice guy, and I gave him a very sketchy-looking wad of $20 bills, and he gave me a completely sealed AirPods. So I do have AirPods, as it turns out, and I love these things. There are problems for sure. I personally have not run into the double tap thing because I find that I'm never, ever, ever double tapping the AirPod. If I want to pause, I'll just pull one of them out of my ear, and I haven't even thought to use Siri for anything. The pairing process, as you said, was phenomenally easy. They showed up on my iMac pretty much immediately, although it was a little wonky getting them to attach. I don't want to say pair because they were paired to the iMac, but getting them active on the iMac, and we'll come back to that in a second. It took a reboot to get them to show up on my work computer, but my work computer has odd firewalls and security restrictions and big business, yada, yada, yada. But after reboot, that did work just fine. I used them off and on today at work. I use them as much as I would use my traditional Bluetooth headphones. And at the end of the day, the earbuds or the AirPods were pretty much entirely charged because the handful of times that I would go and use the restroom or have a chat with somebody or I don't know, go downstairs to nuke my lunch, I would put them back in the case and that would top them up. And the case was down to about 52%. Now, I did leave work early today. I left work at about 1:00. And so this isn't a perfect exemplar of a normal 8 to 9 hour workday, but having worked over half a day, the case was at 52% and the earbuds were basically completely charged. I didn't have any grumbling, or I didn't find it frustrating to not have any sort of playback controls because most of the day I spent with them active on my work computer where I have my keyboard with play, pause, and all that other stuff right there waiting for me. The handful of other times I used them throughout the day, they were attached to my iPhone, which was attached to me. I can absolutely see how it could be annoying. And John, I totally understand what you're saying. And I can totally see why that would be frustrating, but that's not something that has bothered me yet. Erin, every time she sees me with them in my ears, very casually and very politely reminds me how much of a moron I am, or at least what a moron I look like, which I think she's kind of right about that. They do look a little goofy, but I love these things. The one complaint I have is that I haven't quite figured out the right dance in order to get them to mate, if you will. That's probably not a good word for it either, but whatever. Yikes. Mate with a desktop, with a laptop or desktop, as opposed to the phone, because the phone is pretty much always near me. And even if the phone is off in the sense that it's not, the display is not on and it's just sitting there idly, it seems like they really want to connect to the phone first, which I think I understand, but I'll start playing like a podcast or music or what have you on, say, my work laptop, and that doesn't seem to be enough. Now, maybe this is user error and I just haven't broken the code on the right sequence of events to do, but it wasn't until I went into the Bluetooth menu item and then went to my AirPods and then said connect that they would wake up and start to connect to my work computer. It was also very briefly discerning, it was just weird. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. That I would hear audio out of the right ear first consistently and then the left ear. Now, it was for a flash, just barely enough for me to tell that there was a difference. And then they never got out of sync after that. But that was a little weird. But all in all, I love these things. And I think a large part of the reason that I love these things is because it reminds me of the idealized Apple that we all love. And I think we're probably going to talk about the other kind of Apple that might be the Apple of today here in a few minutes. But the Apple that shipped the Apple of today that shipped these AirPods is the Apple that I love the most. And the one that is whimsical and has soul and has energy and has fun. And God, I love these things. And just doing the little flip, I don't know if that's coming through on the mic, but oh God, just doing that. I'm going to break this damn case from doing that constantly. It's so satisfying. It's so satisfying. And then the magnets that kind of like suck the AirPods into the case, super satisfying. So good. I love these things. I do think $160 is pretty steep. Like, I'm not saying it's not fair.
Honestly, for what you're getting in the competitive landscape of decent Bluetooth earbuds, especially separate ones, because like the level of complexity to make them not have a wire that goes between them is very like that's a very cutting edge thing. Yeah. Very few other things in the market can do that right now, and they all have massive challenges in making that happen and making it work well because of the way Bluetooth works, basically. But for what you're getting here, I think they're actually well priced. They're like, it's not like a bargain basement, like, you know, going to blow the doors off with pricing only kind of thing, but it is a fair price for what you're getting.
Yeah, and that's fair. I'm not saying it's not a fair price. It's just $160 is a lot of money for what appears to be physically not that much. Now, in reality, you're exactly right, that there's a lot there. And in fact, getting it so small is a big freaking deal. But I love these things. I am surprised how much I mean, I knew I was going to like them, but I really like them a lot. And there's a little, there's a rough spot here and there, like you guys were saying about double tapping. Again, maybe it's user error, but I haven't really gotten the sync between computer and phone working quite right. But have like the Bluetooth headphones that I use at work, which I've talked about incessantly for the entire run of this show. They're terrible headphones, but they work consistently. However, they work consistently in part because I only ever have them paired to one computer at a time.
Right.
These AirPods are paired to a work computer, an iMac, an iPhone, and an iPad, and don't blink an eye. And I only had to really do the pairing once. And that is freaking magic. And for that alone makes me super enthusiastic. And I know that's silly. I recognize how silly that is, but just having the flexibility to use these things with whatever I want, basically no more difficult in a way that's no more difficult than unplugging and replugging a cable. That's just awesome. So I love them. I really do.
Yeah. And there are other Bluetooth headphones on the market that support being paired to multiple devices at the same time and having some way to choose between them or to be simultaneously connected. Like that does exist in other headphones, but none of them do it quite to this level. Like to have like this, especially like the way they basically sync the pairing to all of your other iCloud devices, and like, if you have an Apple Watch, it'll just show up as like an AirPlay output device, like the same way an AirPlay device would show up. It shows up on your other devices like that. And it's like if you're sharing it between, as you said, like laptop and phone, or phone and iPad, or all the above, like it is way easier with the AirPods than with anything else I've ever used to have it on more than two devices.
Yeah. So two thumbs up. I know I'm one person in a week. Did you see that feedback we got way back when, that one person can't say two thumbs up? But anyway, two thumbs up for me anyway, because that's how much I like them. Yeah, fair enough. Any other thoughts on AirPods from either of you two before we move on?
About the hardware, I was thinking about how these things are so close to being, just take the regular AirPods and cut off the wires. And like if we had seen this exact thing in like a 90s sci-fi movie, would have been like, that's so fake.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like that. Absolutely.
We are like, they've done such an incredible job of not having this look like a thing that plays audio plus a big blob that has the electronics in it, right? Like, and because it's an object that we've seen so often, these white EarPods that have been on the market for a long time, just like a slightly thicker skin, it just appears to be magic. That's part of what we're responding to, like that it's a magical. I mean, it's low level magic. It's not levitate a mountain magic, but it is low level magic. Like it is surprising that it works, and very quickly you get used to it. But it's very impressive in terms of this. This is the magic of design, of like making a thing that looks boring and simple, but then like if you look at the iFixit teardown and realize what they shoved in there and what it manages to do, and just it's fairly incredible that even the basics work. And I think they made sacrifices to do that. Like by not having a wire, you sacrifice the ability to have a little dongle. By making them so small and perfect, you sacrifice the ability to have like, a little touch area where you slide your finger up and down for volume control. Like it wouldn't be the same magic with that. I still would like a little extra dongle that would maybe let me use these so that I could, play pause or whatever. Like I clip it to my belt or something. Who knows what the hell I would do with it? And yes, we've seen the ones that are on the market like that. I wish more of them had buttons that I could feel without looking instead of being a uniform circle or whatever. But anyway, hardware-wise, this is a pretty big home run, I think. Other minor details, a couple people in the chat room were talking about my how I didn't like tapping it in my ear. Doesn't matter where I tap it. I tried every location you could tap the thing. I tried tapping, the stem part, the end, the middle, the part that's in my ear. I tried tapping light, heavy, tapping next to it, not actually every combination that actually causes it to play pause or to activate or whatever. I immediately changed it to play pause. I didn't even bother with the Siri thing. But anyway, at any location I find very unpleasant. The other thing that my wife pointed out after, for me giving these a trial run is that the signal that you send to other people, if they try to talk to you and you turn to look at them and double tap your ear, it's kind of like you're saying, I'm listening to something here, like as you point to your own ear. Hello, see the thing in my ear? Which is exactly the signal you do not want to send, because it seems like, because you do turn to face them, and then you double tap your ear like you're pointing to it, especially if you have to do it 4 times. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. It seems like you're saying, you see the ear pod, don't try to talk to me, which let me tell you, doesn't go over big. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to play pause. So I'm not quite sure.
I think obviously you're meant to just remove one from your ear, which does which also pauses it. Like that's obviously like the more common thing you're supposed to do.
Right, yeah. But the removing is just a non-starter for me. Like in that environment, like even if only because then that means I have to reseat them, and I'm grabbing the thing with my grubby fingers. Again, I'm much better at tapping the little thing. One thing that a lot of us who just received our EarPods noticed a similar story of receiving them, a couple days ago. In the Northeast anyway, it's very cold, and you get the package, and you open it up and you want to try them out, and because they're so cold and they have these tiny little batteries that are frozen, and lithium-ion batteries do not do well when they're frozen, I got them, and it's like, oh, these things need to be charged. Like they're not, I opened it up immediately and it started to pair, but then it was like, low battery or whatever. I'm like, oh, I just got them out of the box. Maybe they don't have a charge. I should charge them. So I went to plug them in, and the time it took me to take them over to the other room and find a lightning cable and plug it in, like all of a sudden they were, they appeared as on my phone, which I was bringing with me, as like, oh, they're almost already charged. Really, it was just the batteries thawing out. Like, so if you do get these and it's cold and you're anxious to open up the package, like give them 5 minutes to warm up. Like they usually do come with some amount of charge in them. It's not as if they charged in 5 seconds. They didn't. They just thawed out. So chill when you're the reverse of chill. Let them unchill when you get them, and you'll be happier.
Warm out.
Which, by the way, may be a factor for people who run in the cold. This is what I'm thinking about. Like, these as exercise AirPods.
No, if it's in your ears are going to keep them warm. The bigger issue would be if you leave them in your car all day and your car's parked outside, and you come back to your car and they've been there and they're frozen. That's going to be the bigger issue.
Yeah, don't leave them in your car. But I was thinking, like, for these, it seems like they'd be ideal for exercise as well. Especially, I know I don't want to go into things that are probably not public yet. But anyway, I would love to be able to play podcasts from my watch locally onto my EarPods when out for like a run or something, and not have my phone with me at all, for a lightweight way to do this without wires. That is very appealing to me. I'm looking forward to something like that this summer, if possible. What's that?
If it's possible, we could talk. I'm not entirely convinced it's possible.
I know. I'm not going to talk. Anyway. You can talk about that later if you want. The final thing is the case is awesome. Flicking the little thing is awesome. Pulling the EarPods out of the case is sometimes less than awesome. Because they are held in there by weak magnets, but there's not really a good place for you to grab.
Yeah, that's fair.
And guess what? Guess what is on EarPods eventually?
Earwax.
Mm-hmm, which it can be kind of slippery if you're a greasy Italian like me. I make the EarPods greasy. Gross. And sometimes I'm trying to remove a greasy EarPod from a tiny little case, and it's slippery, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get them out, is all I'm
saying. Anyway, yeah. Like, and I in closing, I agree with Casey. Like, these are such a good product. This is Apple at its best. Like, this is the kind of thing that most people don't do as well as Apple. It's them tackling an incredibly complicated problem. Both it's a serious technology challenge and a serious design challenge. And I don't mean that in just the way it looks. I mean a lot of design choices that go into it. This is a serious challenge, and Apple really did a really good job with it. I wish they fit me. They don't. But for people who they fit, you should really consider picking these up because they're really, really quite good.
And on the fit thing, by the way, I've been trying to think about, because there are people who that just doesn't fit your ears. Everyone's ears are different, right? There's not much you can do about it because Apple only sells one shape. Do you think it would it help you, do you think, if they sold them like 3 sizes, like standard and then like a smaller and a bigger? Or like, I don't know if the problem is that they're too big or too small or shaped wrong or whatever, but like, obviously Apple did that whole big thing when they first came out with the EarPods, the wired ones a long time ago. We measured 1 million ears, and they try to go for the shape that will fit the most ears. And they probably did. They probably nailed it. This is a shape that fits the most possible ears with a single shape. But with a single shape, you're never going to fit all the ears. Do you think they could eventually expand to have 2 or 3 different sizes? And if they did, do you think that would help your fit? Because I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I would imagine that if it's falling out, it's probably either too small so it's not gripping against the edges, or too big that you can't really get it wedged in there.
Right. I mean, I also don't know what the problem is, but assuming that would be a problem that they could address that way, I don't think they would. I don't think it would be their style to sell EarPods in 3 different sizes, and
I sell the watch in 2 sizes.
Especially because think about when somebody returns an EarPod, they cannot do anything with that. Like, they can't resell it. They can probably refurbish it if they can get all the crap out, but they probably can't. It's probably not worth it.
They're going to refurbish it, guaranteed. When you pay your $70, I guarantee you're getting somebody else's EarPod.
Maybe, but it's because it's been in somebody's ear, there's a lot of issues anyway. So they have to totally refurbish that. If they sold them in 3 different sizes, they'd get so many more returns from people who they didn't fit, and they think, this is the wrong size. Let me try this other size now. And it turns out that doesn't fit me either. It's that would be problematic. Also,
they gotta have try-ons in the store. They should have little inert plugs that they douse in alcohol between. You know what I mean? I mean, they wipe down all the stuff in the store.
That's
anyway.
not Apple style.
Already.
They
do that for all the phones and everything. The first of all, those are just germ transference devices anyway, and they do
phone,
wipe
sure.
down. Yeah, they wipe them down with these disinfecting wipes, all day long, and also when the store closes and everything like that.
They're not going to open the little drawer under the table that you're not supposed to know exists and pull out a tray of ear plugs and be here, try this on. That's not. No, they would rather take the return hit.
They let you try on watches to see which size fits you. They do have 2 different sizes of watch.
Yes, but that's not putting something inside of you.
Yeah, and you can see it, and I think most of the time, you can just know by trying it on for a second that, and they can reuse that one that you tried on. But yeah, it's that's very different.
The chat room says they do AirPod try-ons and then they wipe them down.
Really? Ew.
Already.
Anyway, so the other thing is I don't really see today's Apple as caring a whole lot about edge cases. And so anything that they consider an edge case, they kind of, by their actions or lack thereof, have been giving the middle finger to recently. So I can't imagine that they would care.
Because it really matters what percentage they hit. Because again, their whole thing is we measured thousands of ears and we tried to find one shape that would fit the largest number of them. If that number is 95%, no, they're never going to do anything for the 5%. But if it's 70%, I think eventually they could be convinced that 70% is too low. And so either change the shape of the one that we're selling to try to get to 80 or 90, or if you can't, then, I'm sure they gather this information of people who buy these things and then fill out a survey or complain, because they do that. Every time you buy something, it seems like every time I buy something, I get one of the surveys, and they ask you very pointed questions about stuff like this. And if they ask anyone any questions about EarPods or AirPods, guaranteed one of the questions would be, do you find that it falls out? Do you feel like it fits well? Is it comfortable? This is one of the pillar items of this product, is they want to know, can people put it in their ears, and does it do the job of, playing the music reliably and staying in their ears and doing what it's supposed to do? And it seems to me anecdotally that I think they already are getting a really high percentage. So I think you're right that they're probably not ever going to do anything about that. But If I'm wrong and they're really a low percentage, I would say high is like 80 or 90 and low is 70 or lower. If I'm wrong and they are low, I think they will do something to try to address that, because 70% is not a high enough. I think they would like to sell products like this to more than 70% of their customers. And granted, they're like, buy Beats, buy whatever, like it's third party ecosystem, so on and so forth. As long as it does Bluetooth or has a Lightning connector, it'll be fine. But and also, like, when a product is really mature, then and you have nothing left to do, that's when you start diversifying. So we'll give it a few years. But I think the first thing they would try is maybe tweaking the design, and they would say, oh, now the all new AirPods 3 years from now with a slightly different shape that we think fits a wider variety of ears.
Yeah, maybe.
Not Marcos though.
No, they'll never fit my. And I don't really hold it against them in this particular case.
Yeah, because what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the problem is. So it's that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with other headphones. I would be happy with AirPods, but I also do like having a lot of good controls on my headphones and a little more isolation sometimes. So yeah, it's nice. Anyway, I'm reviewing a bunch. You'll hear about them later.
Just to avoid the feedback that we'll get, what do you make of this theory that these were originally supposed to charge via USB-C based on the size and shape of the receptacle, the Lightning receptacle, and then at the last second they said, oh, just kidding, let's use Lightning? I personally don't really buy it. I have plugged an official first-party cable into my AirPods case right now. Yes, it does. It does look ever so slightly bigger, the receptacle does, and I don't have a USB-C connector handy, but this seems like a really weak argument to me. What do you think, John?
No, I don't buy that one, mostly because if you remember, we talked about the fat Lightning connector that I didn't like plugging into the bottom of my iPhone 7, the larger one that has the chip in it because it has the DAC and everything like that. If you plug that into the case, which admittedly makes no sense because it's a headphone, right? But if you plug that into the case, it perfectly covers the opening. It looks perfect. It looks exactly like it was made to plug in there, right? If you plug in one of the older ones, or if you plug in the Lightning cable that is hidden at the bottom of your box that you may not have found, if you have AirPods, by the way, look in the bottom of the box. It comes with a Lightning cable for charging, which, as Marco points out, has a USB-A connector on the end.
Courage.
Yep. That one does not cover the ends of the connector, and you can see these little parts peeking out, and it looks weird. You're like, what's the deal, Johnny Ive? But I have here's the main reason I don't think it was USB-C. But Apple charges stuff with Lightning connectors. All of its iOS devices charge with Lightning connectors. Everybody who has Apple crap has a bunch of Lightning connectors to charge stuff. Why in the world would they make this one thing charge not with a Lightning connector? So, I think, and the only thing I can think of is well, does that mean that every Lightning connector is going to be like these fat ones, even if they don't have the DAC chips in them? Will the plain old charging cables be fat? I hope not, because I don't like the fat one. I like the skinny ones. So I don't really have a good explanation, but I have a hard time thinking of any reason that this one particular peripheral would charge with USB-C. Unless they're going to go to USB-C everywhere, which seems entirely unlikely because it's still bigger and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's an interesting theory. I would love to know the actual explanation, and I guess if we wait a year and every single Lightning cable now comes with the fat connector, there's your explanation, because it looks perfect on this thing.
Marco, what do you think?
John covered it well. Basically, yes, there is this weird gap that is kind of un-Apple-like to have this weird-looking mismatch. It's extra weird that the cable that comes in the box doesn't fill the gap properly, but I also would think it would be very strange to have this charge via USB-C given the current lineup, because all of their other accessories that are this size and in this area,
even the pen, pencil, sorry,
yeah, and that's its own weird charging thing. But everything else charges by Lightning that's like this in the Apple world. So yeah, I would be very surprised if it didn't. And it would actually be, I think, less convenient for most people if it charged via USB-C. Because if you are using these, you're almost certainly using them with an iPhone. And you are going to have little Lightning cables all over your house or car or work or all of the above to charge your phone wherever you are in most cases. So you're always going to have the ability to charge something that charges via Lightning if you own the AirPods. So it makes total sense to have these also charged by Lightning, and it would not make a lot of sense in real-world use for who's actually buying these and how they're actually using them to have that be a USB-C port. We are also sponsored this week by another new sponsor. It is SQL Pro. This is a Mac app at sqlprostudio.com. I'm so happy that they actually told me how to pronounce SQL, because otherwise I would have had to guess, and I'd be very, very worried that I'd guess wrong. Anyway, SQL Pro supports many of the most popular database platforms, such as Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, or is it MySQL? I don't know. MySQL, and Oracle. SQL Pro also offers an intuitive interface where the most basic to advanced database needs are very easily accessible. This includes features such as autocomplete, syntax highlighting, and support for multiple result sets. And of course, all sorts of other advanced features, some of which include support for cloud providers such as Amazon RDS, Microsoft Azure, and Heroku. You can check it all out today with a 7-day free trial available at sqlprostudio.com. And you can save 20% off purchases by using the promo code ATP20. And if you're a student, there are also student discounts available. If you contact the author, Kyle, at hankinsoft.com for details, student discounts are available for students. So check it out today, SQL Pro at sqlprostudio.com, and you can get 20% off your purchase by using the promo code ATP20. Once again, sqlprostudio.com, code ATP20 for 20% off. Thank you very much to SQL Pro for the Mac for sponsoring our show.
All right, I'm bracing myself for impact. Over the last couple of days, there's been a little bit of chatter about the state of the Mac. This started, at least as far as I'm aware, by a back and forth, a Q&A, some sort of thing that happened on some sort of internal Apple message board that, of course, got leaked. And it has Tim Cook discussing the future of the Mac. And I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he says basically, hey, the iMac is great. Oh, okay. Would you mind jumping in then, please?
Yeah, so the question from, I guess, an employee was, we had a big MacBook Pro launch in October and a powerful upgrade to the MacBook back in the spring. Are Mac desktops strategic for us? And so Tim Cook basically says, I'll summarize a little bit. He says, the desktop is very strategic for us. It's unique compared to the notebook, blah, 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 blah. Then he says, the current generation iMac is the best desktop we've ever made, and its beautiful Retina 5K display is the best desktop display in the world. Some folks in the media have raised the question about whether we're committed to desktops. If there's any doubt about that with our teams, let me be very clear. We have great desktops in our roadmap. Nobody should worry about that. So this, yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
That was a very Trumpian answer, I have to say.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that bad, let's be honest, but it wasn't that much better. Here's the thing. This was an opportunity that Tim Cook chose to take to reassure people who really care about Macs and specifically Mac desktops to reassure them that Apple still has their needs covered and plans to keep covering their needs. And Tim basically gave an informationless answer that committed to nothing, that had even less hope than the last time somebody asked him about this, that resulted in the 2013 Mac Pro, where he said, like, we have something for our Pro customers coming later next year, whenever that was, 2012 probably. If he had anything positive to say about any Mac desktop other than the iMac, I think he probably would have made a stronger implication about that, or would have used some different wording. Tim Cook chooses his words very carefully. He knew, by writing this, he knew that somebody would leak it, so he was obviously writing it with that in mind, because he's a smart person, he knows how these things work. And again, he chooses his words very carefully. If he had anything more reassuring to say about Mac desktops, he would have said it. So the fact that he didn't is actually a little unsettling, even more unsettling than I think that if we didn't have this interaction with Tim. That like, if we had no information, I'd be a little more confident with that than what we have here, which is basically him saying we have desktops covered with the iMac. Like, that's basically what he's saying here. And I don't. And look, I'm talking to you from an iMac. I have an iMac right here. I sold an underperforming older generation processor Mac Pro to get this iMac because the iMac outperformed it. But that's not a problem. Like, the problem there is not that Mac Pros are terrible. It's that the Mac Pros we have right now are not competitive and are not a very good buy and are not being kept up to date. I wrote months ago now, like, why I care about the Mac Pro so much and why I think it needs to remain in the lineup and remain good and remain up to date. None of those things have changed. The Mac Pro still does things that iMacs can't do. Not to mention, Apple also sells this other desktop called the Mac Mini, which is even more neglected most of the time than the Mac Pro, which is saying a lot. The last update to it was not only many years ago, but made it worse. So it's like, there are these two desktops that a lot of people use and in many cases depend on. And Apple Apple has a lot of customers who depend on these machines who are basically begging them for some sign that their needs will continue to be covered in the future. And Apple is responding with, most of the time, silence and inaction. And then this statement here is not only not better than silence, but is actually worse, I think, because the way you can read it very easily really does seem like the only desktop that Tim Cook thinks people need is the iMac. And I there are other ways to read it. I'm not saying that's the only way to read it, but I think that's the implication here, and I think it's pretty clear.
I have a different take on it than Marco in the terms of being unsettled by it, because, first of all, it could have been way worse. I know that's, not damning with faint praise, but if he had been asked this question and had said, I know desktops have been an important part of our business, but we really believe that the future is laptops only, and our laptops actually now are almost as powerful as our desktops that we never update. And so actually we think that having a laptop with the amazing Thunderbolt ports that could connect to these wonderful LG displays that are totally not delayed and that we've discounted, like, they could have given an answer that said, actually, the day of the desktop is done. He didn't give that answer. Instead, as vague as it was, he said, we believe desktop is really important, blah, blah, blah. We have great desktops coming, blah, blah. He felt compelled to give an answer that is in the direction of attempting to reassure people that, yes, Apple still does care about the desktop, despite recent and not so recent events. So, and that doesn't change anything, because that's where the direction I thought they were going in anyway. The only information in this statement is for people who were afraid that Apple was going to cancel the iMac. This statement would reassure the people who were afraid that Apple was going to cancel the iMac. It did nothing to reassure people who were hoping that he would say something about the Mac Pro and the Mac Mini, because he didn't. And, it's totally clear, we think the desktop is important. Hey, have you seen the iMac? Because when we say desktop here at Apple, we basically mean iMac at this point. It's a really great desktop. It's the best desktop we ever made. Look at that screen. It's great. iMac, iMac, iMac. And then one vague statement. We have great desktops coming, one of which is an iMac with a better GPU, right? Whatever you want to read into it. It could be we have great desktops coming, including an amazing new Mac Pro, or an amazing new Mac Mini, or something you've never heard of, and we'll cancel both those lines and replace it. Who knows? You could read anything you want into that statement. So I feel like this entire exchange is a reaffirmation of the status quo that we on this show at least have had consensus on, that basically the iMac is Apple's vision of the desktop. It's the only thing they're updating. It's the one that we all think is the best one to buy because the other ones are so terrible. And they reaffirmed that. And only if you were afraid that they were going to go laptop only would you be reassured by this. Otherwise, it's just, business as usual.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel good about the Mac right now. And I that is very painful for me. I don't want to get into it because we're happy for the most part tonight, so I want to stay that way. And talking about the Mac makes me sad because it seems like I care about it a lot more than Apple does, and that's scary.
Well, so we should say, since we have a scheduling thing and we want to, we're going to record another show very soon after this one. So I think I want to save the Gurman Mac Malaise article, as it is called in the show notes here.
Which made me very happy, by the way. That was very well done.
For the next episode. But there is one thing on a slightly lighter note that I want to throw in on the Tim Cook thing, although it's actually more related to the Mac Malaise. Someone wrote in, whose name I'm removing to protect the innocent. A listener wrote in about the idea of us complaining about the Mac Pro and everything, and They were giving us some information that they thought we might not have. And this person said, wondered if you'd mentioned that back in 2010, they took 2 years to make a minor silent update to the Mac Pro. And then the day after the silent update, Tim Cook said he'd get a better update the following year, but then it took 18 months to get this better update. So Apple's taking its sweet time giving the update to the Mac Pro before. Just wondering if we were aware of that. And what he basically did in those 2 sentences is summarize the first year and a half to 2 years of ATP. For the people who haven't listened to the show in the beginning, our logo was the old cheese grater Mac Pro with a sarcastic new badge on it. That was about the silent update after a WWDC keynote. It was like, yeah, we updated the Mac Pro, but it's such a minor update that it's not even worth talking about, and they're not really new, and it's not a good update, but we have more stuff coming. And then we still had to wait a long time for it. And then it was the trash can, Can't Innovate, what was it? Can't Innovate My Ass, or whatever it was supposed to be.
Can't innovate anymore, my ass.
And then they didn't update it for 3 years. So, yes, dear new sweet listener, we are indeed aware of this history of the Mac Pro, and it is kind of one of the foundational building blocks. I don't know what you call it.
It's really one of the running themes of our show.
Yes. I'm trying to think of it's one of the axes that we grind, our main grinding axes.
It is the axe that we grind.
Yeah, or at least 2 out of 3 of us anyway. And then we grind it, and Casey rolls his eyes and moans
and drinks.
That was only once. Thank you very much.
That was amazing.
But nonetheless, I'm not as worked up about it as you guys are for sure, because whether or not I would be better served by a Mac Pro, which presumably I would, I don't personally feel like I have a need for one. And so because of that, I'm not as worked up about it. I am, however, worked up about the future of the Mac in general. It seems clear that the kind of Macs that I would buy, which is either a MacBook Pro or a 5K iMac, I don't think those are going away anytime soon. But I do think that there will come a time that these machines are either going to be even more neglected than they are today, or perhaps non-existent at all. And I think that my canary in the coal mine, to some degree, is going to be, when does Swift Playgrounds become more than just playgrounds? Because the most obvious reason to keep the Mac around is to make iOS apps. And if suddenly it's possible to do that on an iPad, that makes things interesting and potentially very bad for someone like me who genuinely prefers the Mac. Because if I have a choice to do anything other than, browse Twitter or whatever, even oftentimes ordering something on Amazon, if I have the choice, I'd rather go to my 5K iMac or perhaps my MacBook Pro than an iPad or a phone.
Because you want to open up a lot of tabs, right?
Exactly. No, truly, yeah. That's exactly right.
I know. I was not being sarcastic. I was just slowly... I'm just showing you how you are going down the slippery slope towards me, or rising up to Mount Olympus to be with me.
Oh, listen to this guy. Oh, my God. Oh, Jesus. I think my eyes just rolled right out of my head.
You can choose whether I'm dragging you down into hell or up to the
no
heights.
Comment. I plead the fifth, Your Honor. Anyway.
Oh my God.
But the point being, I still very, very deeply care about the Mac. I would like to think, just as much as the two of you guys do, the difference is I don't personally need a Mac Pro in my life, where I think that you guys do. And so I'm scared. I'm scared about where this is all going, but I don't think the sky is falling quite yet. But it certainly looks like it's getting a little closer, and that's scary.
I fundamentally have a major problem with the perception that many people have, and I'm not saying this to attack you, Casey, but this is not just you, this is far from you. Many people seem to be under the impression that the main role that the Mac serves is as a legacy support platform for the creation of iOS apps. And that is just complete and utter bullshit. It is nowhere close to reality. That being said, that is not necessarily to say that Apple doesn't think this or that some people inside of Apple don't think this. I don't think everyone in Apple thinks that, but I do think that there is a strong risk that Tim Cook might think that. I don't know that for sure, obviously. I don't know Tim Cook. We don't hang out. But I do worry about that perception that, like, the assumption that the Mac is a legacy platform, that it is on its way out, that it is not the future, and then B, that its main reason for continued existence now is as an iOS app creation platform, and then C, that iOS will become a better app creation platform. Because I would actually argue that all three of those are wrong.
I have thoughts about this, but before we do that, why don't we go through our last sponsor?
We are sponsored tonight by CocoaConf. Go to CocoaConf.com. CocoaConf is a technical conference for Apple developers and designers. And next year, from March 20th through 23rd, CocoaConf is returning to Yosemite National Park for its third Yosemite event. It is held, once again, they've done this for 3 years now, at the Yosemite Lodge at the Falls. It is a beautiful location. This is one of those things where, like, if you want an excuse to just be in a beautiful place, this is a conference. Like, your work will pay for this. and this is a great, like, you need to go to this conference. If you're going to have work pay for a conference, you want it to be this one because, my God, what a beautiful venue they have there. Speakers this year also include Ashley Nelson-Hornstein, Brent Simmons, Daniel Steinberg, _David Smith, Georgia Dow, Jamie Newberry, Matt Drance, and Sebastian DeWitt. These are all great people, very smart, top of their fields, who are excellent speakers. I've actually seen most of them speak. They are excellent people. I highly recommend this lineup. There's also guided hikes and a photo walk led by TED photographer James Duncan Davidson, also excellent. And there's music by James Dempsey and the Breakpoints, and Jonathan Mann, who sings the Song a Day and who sings our theme song. I've also seen both these musical acts. They're excellent. So basically, I've seen almost everyone who's putting on this conference, and this is an incredible lineup. Highly, highly recommended. And the venue, you cannot find a better conference venue. So check it out at CocoaConf.com. You can use code ATP to save 15% on tickets for Yosemite, and CocoaConf Chicago also is running in April 21st through 22nd. So once again, CocoaConf.com, March 20th through 23rd in Yosemite, and they have a Chicago event, April 21st and 22nd. Use code ATP to save 15% off tickets for those two events. Thank you very much to CocoaConf for sponsoring our show once again.
So, Marco, a second ago you had taken me to task, and fairly, that, you know, it's kind of BS that everyone looks at iOS apps as the only reason the Mac exists, and I think that you're right to take issue with that. If I'm allowed to spend a moment and expand my thoughts a little bit, I think the thing to me is if I try to put myself in Apple's shoes, Apple may not have an answer. Like the chat room is talking about having hundreds of gigabytes of photos that they'd like to process on their Macs. Okay, that's totally fair. But Apple may not care about people who have hundreds of gigabytes of photos that they need to process. They could just say, you know what, buy a damn PC. I'm not saying that's factual. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And the thing that Apple cannot get around, there is no two ways around it, is if they want their strongest and most profitable platform to continue to exist, which is iOS, if they want that to continue to exist, they need third-party developers, and those developers, in turn, need Macs. I don't think that Apple wants to tell photo professionals or video professionals or any other professional to go away, but they could. Whereas they can't tell iOS developers to go away unless suddenly Xcode is running on a PC, which I guess weirder things have happened, but that'd be really freaking weird. And that's why I'm hanging my hat on this iOS app thing. It's not because... It's just because that to me is the one thing that is non-negotiable. And if that goes away, if suddenly you are capable of building an iOS app on an iPad, which I think would be preposterous and frankly strikes me as a friggin' terrible idea. But who knows? If that coming. Works, I think it's coming, but I just don't think it would be particularly efficient at all or a lot of fun. But that being said, look at what Steve Troughton-Smith has been doing, and you know there's an argument for it. But anyway, if that becomes possible, if you can submit to the App Store from an iPad, then suddenly the app isn't non-negotiable, or the Mac isn't non-negotiable anymore, and suddenly Apple has options that involve killing the Mac. And that's what I'm saying. Does that make any more sense?
I understand why you say that. I understand why lots of people say that. I understand why people think that developing full apps on iOS is going to be a thing. And I think it will be a thing for some people. But I also think that I've heard that argument almost entirely from non-developers, and there's a reason for that. Modern app development involves the integration of a lot of small tools everyone has a slightly different set of. It is kind of, in many ways, it isn't just Xcode. There's lots, like, if you just port Xcode over, that's not enough. That's enough for some apps, but not enough for, like, complex apps, not enough for most good apps. The way developers work with the computer itself, with the apps, with the file system, with the tools, the various tool chains, all these different integrations and plugins and custom scripts and custom builds and everything. The way developers work in practice, professional, real developers, does not translate well to iOS's software ecosystem or to the OS itself right now. The machines, like the iPad, is powerful enough that you could, like, it is a computer of sorts, and the hardware could do this, but the OS is completely wrong for most developers, for most development tasks and most development needs. And this is true needs, not like, I need this chair to be purple, like a need, like, no, if I don't have this capability, I can't do this. Or it would suffer so much that I would never want to do it that way. The way software development happens in practice, for that to move to iOS in a meaningful way, would require so many changes to iOS that I think are either unlikely to happen market-wise, or that Apple would probably never do, and probably shouldn't do to iOS, because it would in many ways ruin a lot of what makes iOS great. So, like, development of software, I always see as needing a more PC-like operating system. And whether that is the Mac or Windows or Linux, God, I hope it's still the Mac. And out of that list, I think my second choice would be Linux. But I really don't see professional software development moving to iOS. Not only for the next few years, but possibly ever, just because of the way iOS works, the way it's limited, the whole way of iOS being like a collection of not like small apps that do one thing and not people's little scripts they wrote for the most part. I know it's possible, but that's not the common case, and there are many limitations there. But iOS is the world of maximized full-screen apps. I know, again, not always, but it is the world of like big, complex apps where you do everything inside of this one app. And Xcode could be one of those apps, but most developers who I know working in software development use way more than just Xcode to get their job done. And it all integrates in these weird little custom ways. And every single thing, like every developer has something in there that Apple excusers would call an edge case. And each one is an edge case, but everyone has at least one of those. So you need, in order to accommodate that style of use, that style of tool chain and workflow, you need something more like the PC operating system than like iOS, in the way you can have tons of different tiny little apps working together, tons of Windows, John, tons of like, different things that integrate and plug in and aren't all firewalled off and sandboxed all from each other. This is what developers need to work. This is not negotiable. This is the way things actually work in the real world for all developers. I don't see how iOS gets to that, ever, unless it basically gets ruined and becomes just like a weird re-implementation of macOS, which could happen, but I don't think that should happen, and I don't think that will happen.
So on that particular point, when you said it before, and you just reiterated again the idea that you're not going to be doing development in iOS unless iOS, on iOS as it currently exists, unless iOS changes in a way that allows you to do that, because right now it doesn't have the facilities, right? The other option, obviously, and I think the one that Apple thus far has shown the most inclination to pursue is not to change iOS so that it is able to support development, but to change development so that it is able to be done on iOS. And so if you look at Playgrounds, obviously that's no Xcode, right? But the idea that what it takes to develop software could be changed. Rather than changing iOS so that it can support what it currently takes to develop software, change what it takes to develop software so that it fits into some semblance of the shape of iOS. And I totally think making applications for iOS on iOS is going to come if iOS itself exists long enough. I would say within the next decade or two, you're going to be able to make iOS applications, probably sooner for toy applications, but for real full-fledged applications, I think it's coming. And I don't think it will come from iOS changing to be more like the Mac. I think it will come from the process of developing software changing to fit into iOS. And I don't think Marco will like it, or anybody who has developed software in this current age, because it will be different and more limited and crappier in a whole bunch of ways. But I think that's coming. Now, I don't want to belabor this more because we do have another whole show to record tomorrow, and I want to talk more about the Gurman and Mac malaise story and different angles in that. But from the specific issue of development, I would say that all the things I just said, it's possible for all that to happen, and the Mac to still be a going concern. But as Casey points out, I think mostly what Casey's point is, this is a prerequisite. If you ever want to ditch the Mac, you got to do something about the development question. And all the options are like, well, chuck them to PC and have them do the development there or whatever, or bring it into iOS. And I think all of those options, all those prerequisites to ditching the Mac are difficult to do. Like, they'll take a long time. It'll certainly take a long time to it would take a long time to do what Marco was suggesting, like change iOS to basically ruin it and make it more like the Mac. Not that I think Apple would do that, but that would certainly take a long time. It would take a long time to change software development so that it fits in within an iOS shape to make you be able to make serious apps. That would take a hell of a long time. And it would take a long time to boot people to PC to say, oh, we're going to port Xcode to PC. All those options would take a long time. And most of them sound like bad ideas and would actually be bad ideas for anybody who is currently developing top-tier iOS applications today. So what does that mean about the future of the Mac? Tune in next week /tomorrow, live listeners.
Cliffhanger ending. It's so our style, right?
And on that bombshell.
Thanks so much to 3 sponsors this week. Wesell Socks, SQL Pro Studio, and CocoaConf. And we will see you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Siracusa. It's accidental. They didn't mean to. Accidental. Tech podcast so long.
So we have an extremely important bit of after show follow-up that I've been really, really excited to talk about for easily hours now. Marco, how's your snowblower?
I have used it, and I'm pretty sure I know how to start it now.
All right.
And it turns out that wireless snowblowers are awesome.
Wow. I forgot that you actually tried to use electric one.
I used them for years.
So you guys got snow?
Yeah. We got maybe like 6 inches, and it was really wet, and so like I knew that if I didn't clear it, it would just turn into a block of ice, which everyone else who hasn't cleared it has done exactly that. So yeah, and I had I've had electric ones in the past, and they work okay, but they tend to die after about 2 seasons, maybe 3 if you're lucky. And every electric snow clearing appliance, I had a power shovel before that, they all had the same problem. They all would just work for a little while, they'd be okay, then they would die. And having to drag around like a 100-foot 15 amp extension cord as you go is both limiting and annoying. So I now finally have a wireless snowblower. It is powered by old dinosaurs. I know, please don't tell me it's actually old plants. I'm very aware. And and it is I thought this is the first gas powered non-car I've ever had. Like I've never had a gas powered lawnmower or anything like that. I was worried that it would be a huge pain in the butt, and maybe as it gets older, it will be. But right now, as it's brand new and I get fancy gas from True Fuel, it is awesome. And it turns out it's really heavy. But that's about the only... Oh, it's pretty loud too. But those are the only downsides. Otherwise, it's kind of amazing to not be tethered by a cord. I got to go... because I'm no longer tethered to my house by a 100-foot cord, I got to do the entire sidewalk for like the 3 houses adjacent to mine because they never do it themselves. And it's always very hard to walk around here. So I got to be like, finally, I can just clear this whole sidewalk myself, damn it. And it was everything I hoped it would be. It was easier than I hoped it would. Or it was easier than I expected, less hassle than I expected. And overall... Now I kind of see, after admittedly one use with no problems, but now I kind of see why most of these appliances are gas-powered. And yes, I do know that wireless electric ones do exist, but I've never been brave enough to try them because not only are they almost as expensive as the gas ones, but I would expect that to not have as much power as the electric ones, or as the corded ones do. And the corded ones have even less power than the gas ones, and so, yeah, that's no good.
I'm very proud of you.
We got the same amount of snow, but I don't have a brand new snowblower, so I had no reason to use the snowblower. We just shoveled it.
You also have a lot less square footage to shovel than I do.
I know, but 6 inches or 8 inches even is not snow. It's not worthy of me getting out the snow. Because my snowblower is worse, like
Oh my God.
environmentally, both environmentally as in for the environment, but also environmentally as in the area around the snowblower, because it's 2-cycle. And it is old and is incredibly noisy, and it makes everything smell, and it's gross. And so there's a high barrier for me to taking that thing out in 6 to 8 inches. We actually shoveled twice. We shoveled once when it was a couple inches, and once more when it was a couple more inches.
6 to 8 inches, and we shut down for a week.
I know.
Yeah, because you guys don't have plows.
Right. Well, I mean, we do, but certainly not to the extent that you guys do.
I said plows, plural. You have one plow.
Shut up, Mark.
We didn't have, our plows weren't out either. Like, I don't understand what our plows were waiting for, but the plows did not come by our house until for a long time. And we always do our sidewalk because we're good suburban people, unlike whoever these demons are that live in Marco's neighborhood who don't shovel their sidewalks. But we have a lot of sidewalk to shovel, and I shoveled the whole sidewalk twice too.
No. Marco, did you take your Tesla out and go hooning?
Go what?
Acting like a hooligan.
It's another southern thing, I think.
Hooning?
No. Yes,
Hooning?
never mind.
Sounds like a southern thing.
It's not a southern thing. Oh,
Is it a college football thing?
No, it's probably what is that god-awful WRX forum, North American Subaru Impreza Owners Club, NASIOC or whatever.
Is it a rally car thing?
I don't know. It's just the act of being a hooning. Top definition on Urban Dictionary. The act of being
Urban
a
Dictionary.
hoon.
Well, there we go.
Or driving recklessly, racing, doing burnouts, etc.
I've never heard that in my life.
Hooning is Australian, the chat room says.
It's Australian, huh?
It's Australian for beer, mate.
Fosters. Anyway, have you gone out driving like a moron? Apologies. In your Tesla in the snow?
No, but by the time I got on the road, it was raining. And the snow was all
that's
gone.
boring. So speaking of cars, the actual thing I really did want to talk about, but I was hoping to bait and switch John with this. There's been a new arrival in the Siracusa family just today.
Finally got your Ferrari, right?
Yeah,
it's red.
The same color. It's the car we've been talking about for a while. I finally got, this is my wife's car. She replaced her old Accord with a new Accord. It was very difficult for us to get a stick shift Accord Sport Special Edition because apparently nobody in the entire world, or at least in the entire U.S., wants to buy that car, so they had to make it for us and then ship it out to us, and now we've got it. And it's nice, and it is currently unscratched and undented and unacorn dented and had 7 miles on it, and it's got the new car smell, and it's got seat heaters, and we're all very happy.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think they might have added some options to the infotainment system, which is still terrible. But I saw a couple, I found the option to remove Pandora, which I never use, so it's not on the source list anymore. So I got to check my car to see if that option was always there, and I just missed it. And a couple other nice things in there. And you can, one of the few options the infotainment system has is you can change the color scheme for it. And there's a red color scheme, and we're going to keep it on that because it matches the car.
Oh, that's adorable. I got to say, it looks great. Really aggressive wheels, which we covered on, I don't know if it ever even made it in the posted version of the show, but we did talk about it on the show at one point or another. It looked really, really good. The wheels particularly I really liked, and it's a sharp-looking car. So what year was the one that you just replaced?
2006, maybe?
Okay, and this is a 2017?
Yeah. We keep our cars for about 10 years. For the most part.
God, that is 10 years, isn't it? My word, I didn't even put that together. It didn't seem like 2006 doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah, and those aggressive wheels, by the way, those aren't as aggressive as they look. They look like Marco's M5 wheels, but they're not. Marco's M5 wheels were 5 spoke, and each of the spokes was these 2 little skinny things. And, so these look like that, but only because they have it's an alloy wheel and everything. But and they're big openings. You can see the brake discs and the caliper and stuff like that. But it doesn't have these little skinny spokes. What it has is big, thick spokes, most of which are painted black, leaving the shiny silver parts that look like Marco's wheels did. So it is cheaper than you think it is, but it is still a pretty cool looking wheel.
Yeah, it's cheating, but it's fine.
Is your wife happy? That's really the only thing that matters.
Yeah, so far.
Fair enough. Were the kids at all enthused, or were they completely did not care about it?
I don't think they care. My daughter, to be contrary, because that's who she is, said she likes that car better than my car, but honestly, I don't know if they...
She couldn't actually believe that.
Yeah,
that would be unheard of.
I mean, from her perspective in the back seat, they're practically identical. I mean, they're... I think only a car person would notice a difference between these two. I mean, I can tell that they're different model years, but it's the same generation of car.
It's brand new. It's red. It has cool wheels.
I know. Well, they don't care about the wheels. Believe me, they don't care about the wheels. The leather seats, I tried to point out, don't you notice seats are leather and they're different? I think they noticed they're different. I don't know if they said, which one is this? Is this the leather one or the not leather one? I don't think they know what leather is. I don't know. Anyway, they seem to be fine with it. So
you had sent us a picture of... the outgoing car. You sent 2 pictures of the new car, and then you had also sent a picture of the stick shift, which made me deeply, deeply happy. I was very enthused to see that. However, I noticed that this is one of the, I think, pretty much standard configurations where reverse is down and to the right, so away from the driver and laterally and toward the driver vertically. That is so ancient looking to me because my Legacy, my Subaru, had that same arrangement, although it was a 5-speed. But now I've been ruined in the good way, I guess, by going in toward me and forward, which I actually really like, as having reverse all the way to the left and up, which is the German way of doing things. I believe Volkswagens do it this way. I can't speak for Audi. Obviously, BMWs do it this way. Mercedes hasn't built a car with a stick shift in 50 years, so who knows? But in any case, I really prefer it there, and it was like a blast from the past to see it back into the right. It was weird.
I think I would like reverse in that position you described. I think it probably actually makes a little bit more sense there. The only thing back into the right has going for it is that it feels reversey, like you're pushing it way backwards.
That's true. Yeah.
But other than that, I think the strongest argument for it being next to first is, especially in the age before lockouts, which everything has now, if you're reaching for reverse, your car is stopped. And the only time you're reaching for first is also when your car is stopped. So the 2 gears you reach for when your car is stopped are right next to each other. Whereas if you're reaching for sixth and get reverse, which obviously you can't because there's a lockout. But if you were, and there was no lockout, that would be very bad. And in the days before lockouts, that would actually be bad. So I can see the argument for it being up there. But Hondas are all like that, where it's back. And you just kind of get used to going back. And then you're going to go first to forward. And then, whatever. It's what you get used to.
It's totally what you're used to, but I quite like having the 2 things that I'm most likely to do from a stop be close to each other. But but then again, you could also confuse them. So there's an argument either way. But no, congratulations to your lovely wife. This is very exciting. I'm glad she chose the correct transmission. This is probably the last time that the two of you will buy a car with that transmission. So I hope you can keep it running forever.
You and your gears.
Yes. I know. It's so barbaric.
You've got gears. You just can't change the ratio.
No, I have forward and reverse. That's it.
I know, but you have gears. You just can't change the gear ratio.
Well, okay, I have one gear of each direction.
No.
I mean, like
understand what John
actual
is saying.
gears, as in wheels with teeth on them.
Do I?
Yes,
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that he does. I understand your point, John, and I would guess that he does, but I'm not
guessing there
entirely
is literally one gear ratio on each axle, and that is
That's what I'm saying. You have gears. You just can't change the ratio. That's all I said.
Captain Pedantic, everyone.
It's not pedantic. I'm using the most precise words I can. It's not like I'm trying to get off on a technicality. I'm not trying to trick you. This is not a trick.
Oh, God, I love you guys.